Greetings, ladies and gentlefish, and I thought we'd have another video discussing some bits of the game that perhaps people don't quite understand and may want to know about. The topic of this video is actually going to be something I was requested to do. We're going to talk about mastery badges and marks of excellence, and I was actually asked to discuss marks of excellence. So these are different awards that you get in the game, and I'm just going to explain basically what they are and how you get them for those who don't know. So let's go and have a look at my service record, for example, and we can immediately see that over here on the far right hand side, where all my vehicles are, you can see there's a column labelled Mastery. What is this talking about? Well, Mastery essentially denotes the level of Mastery badge you have in that particular tank. What is the level of Mastery badge? Well, let's take a particular example. Let's go with, I don't know, here we are. Let's have the Panzer IV Schmolterm. And we're just going to hover over this. So essentially, there are 4 different levels of Mastery: 3rd class, 2nd class, 1st class, and Ace Tanker. And the idea is that these are awarded for performance in a particular game. So what you do is you look at the amount of experience you earned in that game, and we're talking base experience, so we're not talking about including ×2 for the win of the day or the premium bonus or anything like that. We're looking at your base experience. So and we compare that with everyone else who has played that tank in the past 7 days. Okay? So firstly, it's tank specific, so you can't really directly compare, for example, a first class badge in the Panzer IVS here with a first class badge in an IS-3, for instance. It is specific to that tank. Secondly, it is based off experience. It is not based off damage, it is not based off kills. So the more experience you get, the higher up on this mastery rank you will get. So what do the mastery ranks actually mean? Well, as I mentioned, it's specifically for this tank and it's for a battle and it's looking at the experience. And let's say we consider the 3rd class mastery badge. You are awarded that if in a game you get more experience than 50%, so half of the other players who played that tank in the last 7 days. Okay? So basically, in that particular game, you have to be in the top half of all the games people have had in that tank in terms of experience. Okay? That's what 3rd class is. 2nd class is exactly the same, except instead of it being the top 50%, it's now the top 80%. Sorry, instead of it being better than 50% of players, it's now better than 80% of players in the past 7 days. 1st class mastery is the same, except the number now goes up to 95%, and Ace Tanker is above 99%. So what that means is, in order to get a mastery badge, Ace Tanker for example, you have to have one game that puts you experience-wise for that one game in the top 1% of players over the last 7 days for that tank. Okay? So the mastery badge, the mastery badges are based on individual single game performances. They do not reward consistency per se, they are purely based off of single games. So if you might perform terribly in a tank, but have one game where everything comes together and you get an Ace Tanker. But actually that doesn't reflect your overall performance in the machine, because generally speaking you play poorly in it, or by the same token you might generally play very well in it, but you've never quite had that one special game where you managed to get an Ace Tanker. So in my experience, a 3rd class badge generally denotes you had a game that was alright and you won, or you had a good game and you lost, because remember you get an XP bonus for winning. 2nd class mastery is you had a good game and you won, or you had an excellent game and you lost. 1st class mastery, you had an excellent game and you won, or you had an outstanding game but still managed to lose. And Ace Tanker, you had an outstanding game, basically. Now, generally speaking, you only really get these awards on a win, because as I said, you get an experience bonus for winning. But it is possible to get these badges on a loss if you do well enough. And remember, of course, that if you get something like a Top Gun medal or any of the other medals in the game, these give you an experience multiplier if you lose that would be comparable to you winning. So they kind of counterbalance that. So that's a way of getting one of these awards on a defeat. So that's the mastery badges briefly mentioned. Okay? So, now let's quickly talk about... And these are the same for every tank, every nation. Alright? So now, let's quickly talk about marks of excellence. Let me pick a tank I've got some marks of excellence in, just so you can see the sort of thing that they look like. Let's pick a tank I've got a couple of marks in. What have I got a couple of marks of excellence on? I know. Let's go for... Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so these are displayed as marks on the barrel of your gun. Now, a few things to note about these. Firstly, they're only available on tanks of tier 5 and above. So you can't get them on tier 4 or below machines. So no tier 1, 2, 3, 4 marks of excellence. Secondly, if you have a look in the settings, if you don't like them for whatever reason, I'm going to fail to find the setting now, aren't I? Where is it? Here we go, display marks of excellence. You can actually uncheck this box and have them turned off if you want. But whereas mastery badges award specific outstanding games, marks of excellence are awarded for consistency, for consistently good performance. So, let's have a look, for example, at my Centurion, and hopefully you'll see what I mean. So if you go over to the awards tab, you can see here marks of excellence are right here. So, marks of excellence are awarded based on the amount of damage plus the amount of assistance damage that you have achieved in that tank, and again, it's relative to everyone else who's played the machine. So once more, firstly, this is tank specific, so it's not really meaningful to compare, for example, 2 marks of excellence on the Centurion with 2 marks of excellence on a KV2, for instance. They're not really directly comparable like that. So what they do is they take your average damage, and that includes the damage you deal plus your assistance damage. They average that over your 100 most recent battles, and they use that to calculate your mark of excellence. So, if that value is higher than the value of 65% of the player base over the last 14 days, you get 1 mark of excellence. If it's higher than 85%, you get 2 marks. Higher than 95%, you get 3. That's how it works theoretically. Now, in practice, it seems to actually be very, very difficult to attain those 3 marks of excellence as a general rule. Speaking personally, I've never particularly tried to get them, but I don't have a single tank with 3 marks of excellence. I have a number with 2, but I don't have any with 3. And some things to note about this. You might find that you have a quite good game and your percentage actually goes down, and you might be thinking, well, why has that happened? Well, bearing in mind the average is calculated over the past 100 battles. So let's say you have a good game, which now becomes your new 100th battle, but the game you had 101 games ago, which now falls out of that average, happened to be an ace tanker game. It was an exceptional game. Well, that means that overall, despite the fact you just had a good game, your average is actually going to come down. And also, of course, it depends how other people are performing in that tank. So you may not have played a tank for a long time. That tank gets a buff. So generally speaking, people perform better in it, say. And so the marks of excellence become more difficult to obtain, just for instance. And so your percentage actually goes down despite you not having done anything. How are these marks represented on the tank? Well, as I say, this is something you can actually see on the vehicle, and it's represented differently for each nation. So, here, for instance, it is the British marks of excellence. Each mark of excellence is displayed as a single white band on your gun barrel in the case of British tanks, and this is the same for the French. Let's switch now. Ooh, we finally have the Swedish tech tree as a filter in the game. Anyway, I can't show you them on the Czechoslovakian tanks because I don't have a tank that actually has any marks of excellence in the Czechoslovakian tech tree, because I haven't really gone down that tech tree. But in the Czechoslovakian tech tree, each mark is displayed as, I believe it's, instead of a whole ring going around the whole gun barrel, it's just a ring on the side, each side of the gun barrel, and I believe it's 2 of those marks per mark of excellence, but I could be wrong. So I think in total, if you have 3 marks of excellence on a Czechoslovakian machine, that means you have 6 marks on either side of your gun barrel, but don't quote me on that because I might be slightly wrong. Japanese, I don't actually have my STA-1 anymore, which had some marks of excellence on, but the Japanese marks of excellence are little hatchets, so little axes on the side of your gun barrel, 1 on each side. The Chinese are displayed as stars, as are the Soviets. So do I have... Oh yeah, I of course have the Type 58 I can show you. So the Chinese one looks something similar to that. As you can see there, 2 stars on each side of my gun barrel. I have 2 marks of excellence in the Type 58, for example. And the Soviet one is not massively dissimilar. The German one is shown as small rings. So let's have a look at the Panther, for instance, and you'll see what I mean. Small rings toward the end of your gun barrel. Now, for this, 3 rings indicates 1 mark of excellence. So in order to have 3 marks of excellence, you have 9 of these rings. Okay? Right at the end of your gun barrel. Have I missed anyone out? Yes, of course I have. I have missed out the Americans. The Americans, it's displayed as a star on either side of your gun barrel. So here's my M48 pattern, for instance, and you can see there's a star on each side of the gun barrel. And there you go. So that's basically mastery badges and marks of excellence explained. Hopefully those of you who were unsure about it before are now a bit more aware of what's going on. Remember that with marks of excellence it includes assistance damage as well, so if you tend to spot a lot, that will also come in, and actually that's how in my experience you tend to do well with your marks of excellence. Play aggressively enough, depending on the tank of course, to rack up some assistance damage into the bargain. And I should also mention with marks of excellence and mastery badges, they're not retroactive. So once you've got them, you've got them. Let's say you hit 85% on your marks of excellence and you have 2 marks of excellence, like I do with my M8 Sherman here, and then you drop down, your marks of excellence don't vanish. You don't drop down to having 1. It's the highest that you have achieved in that tank. Anyway, I hope you guys found that vaguely informative. Just a quick little video for you there. If you did, by all means, feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel. And I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.